Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Joel Dolisi. I'm the CTO at SolarWinds. I've been there for about 8 years now. I've got two of our finest representatives of the networking business and security business, with Rob Hawk, who's a group product manager on the networking side, and Rob Johnson, who's a product marketing manager. I'm pretty sure that you all know about SolarWinds. Anybody that has never heard about SolarWinds, because then I can skip the whole intro about SolarWinds, what we do, those type of things.
Do it for the video.
The what?
Do it for the video.
Okay, I'll do it for the video then. So basically, SolarWinds was, created in 1998, out of a very small team of people who were kind of dedicated to solve networking problems. Started to build tool set of an assembly of kind of little tools that basically were very useful for the practitioners. This evolved into a multi-million-dollar business over the past 15 years. Around 2006, basically, the two original founders got an influx, sold part of the company to private equity firms, and there was basically at that point a management transition. That's the time when I joined in, and a bunch of us joined right after that. And basically, what happened is, starting 2006, 2007, and going forward, we expanded the portfolio basically from going to a pure networking company to actually, monitoring the different parts of the IT stack. So we started expanding server and applications, virtualization, storage, database, and whatnot. Even on the networking side, we've also added a bunch of products on the side of the primary product that basically is known by a lot of network admin, which is called NPM, or Network Performance Monitor tool. I'll go over that in a couple of minutes to kind of give you an overview of what the portfolio of products that we have right now and the set of technologies that they are dealing with and the set of problems that they are built to actually solve. So overall, no, we have around 28 products when you count all of them. I would say 75% of them are, I would say, server-based. They run on top of a platform that is called the Orion Platform. I'll go over that also a little bit, like I did in the last virtualization field day, to kind of give an overview of how those products fit together, because it's not always obvious the way you go to our website and figuring out that actually those products integrate with each other. And to some extent, that kind of leads me to, it's not obvious sometimes to feel that those products are integrated, because the way SolarWinds go to market is very different than the kind of typical enterprise software company. We directly target the practitioner. We never sell to the CTO or CIO. Our goal is to kind of find people. Actually, we don't find them. People find us because they have problems. They go on Google, figure out, how to solve bandwidth issues or latency issues. They come up, NPM or one of the products that we have in our portfolio pop up. They come, download the bits, basically install it. Within 30 minutes, they should be able to start seeing value, and basically that's how they get engaged with us. So we have very little, actually almost no outbound marketing, and outbound sales, basically we sell from the inside. By doing that, that kind of forces us to have very I wouldn't say narrow, but we have very kind of well-defined products that solve a certain set of use cases, and we never try to sell a complete solution, because for us, we try just to sell a solution that solves a certain set of problems for right now for the user, and hopefully that user will be delighted with our products and come back when they have further problems and basically kind of buy more products. That's kind of our strategy overall. Our sales guys never try to kind of chase the big elephant to actually try to get the maximum amount of money over 6 months or 9 months. They know that if they can close this deal today, tomorrow they'll have other deals that they can basically kind of compensate, and basically later on they're going to have the opportunity to upsell or cross-sell other products. So that's kind of in a nutshell the overview about SolarWinds and a little bit why we are different. And so what I'd like to do right now is kind of go over a high-level kind of drawing of our product portfolio, kind of how it fits on top of the kind of our platform. And then what we'll do is kind of start talking about what we have on the agenda there, which is basically, okay, where are we at right now in terms of kind of network troubleshooting, and where are we going, and kind of interleave some demo out of that. Okay? So most of our products, for the ones that are actually relevant for today, they run on top of a platform that is called the Orion Platform. Basically, that platform provides a set of services such as a UI framework, security for authentication, authorization, auditing, reporting. So you have UI layer, you've got security, you have reports. Basically, the reporting engine is part of this. You have alerts. So all the mechanics about this, detecting alerts, figuring out how to notify people and all of that, it's all part of the platform, so that not all the products have to actually kind of rewrite and encumber themselves with those concerns. They just need to provide the alerting rules, the triggers, the thresholds, and all of that. We also have a data collection engine. Basically, we have a basic engine as part of the platform. That thing doesn't do anything by itself, but then every product that plugs on top of it, drops plugins that tells it, hey, capture those SNMP MIBs, or basically collect WMI data, or run this script on this Linux machine, and basically then parse the CLI output. And basically, the Orion platform is charged with storing the data on behalf of the product into a SQL database. So all of those products that are based on Orion run on premises. They are all downloadable and easily installed on Windows. Then what we have is we have the products on top of that. And the first product, which is the one that we is the most well-known and represents one of the bulk of our portfolio, is the NPM product, or Network Performance Monitor product. That basically product is basically our bread and butter. It basically does basic bandwidth monitoring. Is my switchboard up or down? Do I have CPU memory problem on my devices? Things like that. We have then a product that is actually tightly coupled to our Network Performance Monitor product, which is our Network Traffic Analyzer product. That's based on its NetFlow Traffic Analyzer product. Basically, the goal for that product is basically to capture NetFlow data, store it into a dedicated database that actually is not SQL. It actually is a dedicated storage that is optimized for doing multidimensional queries very quickly. And basically, that product then collect all of that data and can keep detailed data records about all the flows on the network collected from those devices, and basically store that for later usage, or also directly monitoring within the interface. So if you have a bandwidth utilization problem, you can basically drill down from NPM to figure out, okay, who's using the bandwidth there, as long as NetFlow can actually see that information. Then we have other tools, or other products in the networking side. One of them is our user device tracker, which basically is a way for us to help answer who was connected to the switch port at this time. And basically, this product is hooked up to AD. So not only do we give you the IP address, but we can also tell you who was logged on onto that machine on that switch port at this time of the day. So it's a tool that's very, very liked by a lot of network admins when they have to figure out if there's been a data breach or something like that, and they have to come up and figure out who was connected to that. They actually come back with that product and get that. Another product which has been there for a while also is our network configuration management module, which basically its primary goal is to actually back up and restore configuration of network devices, but also doing that at scale. So you can actually do bulk changes over multiple devices within the same script. There's some type of programming language in there that basically allows you to do basic for loops and conditional statements within your scripts, and basically then push them to a multi-vendor set of devices, and basically the engine will figure out, okay, this rule at the high level maps down to this CLI command for Juniper, and this for Cisco, and basically you can basically write those scripts in an abstract manner. Then we have my bottom box is a bit small here, but we have the last. I think that's the last product on the network. Oh no, we have FSM also. So we have our IP address manager product, which is different from all the other monitoring product. The goal for this one is really to deal with how to organize your subnets, and basically that product integrates with the HTTP servers and DNS servers to kind of download the information that is basically maintained by those guys, but also make changes to them. And basically, it's kind of a replacement for the glorified kind of spreadsheet that a lot of network admin are using to actually keeping track of the IP addresses on their network. This is actually a very nice tool. And then one of the last additions that we had of our portfolio is a product called FSM, which is Firewall Security Monitor, which basically monitors its primary goal is to actually look at a firewall and basically kind of reduce the whole set of rules that are on some of those large firewalls and tell you, oh, you know what, 25% of the rules that you have there are actually contradicting each other. And some of those are actually, redundant, and basically allows you to kind of define the core set of rules that you really just need on that firewall. Because what we've seen is a lot of customers over time tend to add rules to the firewalls and never remove them because they have lost knowledge about why that rule was there in the first place. And so the problem is, you do that for 5-6 years on some of those large firewalls, and you end up with just a collection of rules that is completely unmanageable. And that tool really helps, kind of getting that in order. Another great attribute of that product is that it's got this kind of feature set that allows you to actually simulate just by basically having access to the different ACLs and firewall rules that you have on the network path. That product will actually is capable of telling you if a packet using a protocol will actually reach from point A to point B, basically without actually having to actually send the traffic over the network. So
you do that today?
We actually do that today, yes.
Will you talk more about that?
Yes.
Good.
So the big limitation of that product right now, and there are always limitations, is that basically, it doesn't support things like the Palo Alto type of firewall. So it supports a typical, ACL-based, but not looking within, a protocol. So that's kind of, we know that that's, an area where, there's the market is going definitively, in terms of looking in the packets themselves and even kind of at the operation level of the protocol itself. And this is something that we are kind of looking at and figuring out what we need to do there in the future.
So just to clarify that, yes. It handles normal ACL-based firewalls, but it doesn't do the application-based.
Yeah, like if you want to say, on LinkedIn, I authorize the read but not the writes, for instance, at that level, it won't do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so that's kind of the overview of those products. And so, if you go to our website and you look at the list of products that we have on the networking side, it's kind of, you see this, which is kind of the tip of the iceberg where the names of the product, but the reality is that they actually are all running onto the same set of platform bits. So if you download NPM and NCM or NPM and NTA, and you download them at two separate time and you install them on the same server, you're only running once the platform that is supporting them. And those basically, over time, what happens is those products actually integrate with each other, at the UI level, because basically you install them and you expect to see widgets and views that are, provided by those different products, but also on the back end. And on the back end, there's one service that the Orion platforms provide, which is our, information model. And basically, that information model is a way for us to represent a conceptual data model about all the entities that are monitored by all of our products. So if you're familiar with the DMTF and the SIM model, which is the common information model, it is something that is similar to that, but not to the extreme that SIM actually, or the DMTF tries to actually model the whole damn world. We're not interested in kind of, figuring out if this chipset is actually, 3 pins or 4 pins. That's not the level that we needed to go to. But the idea is we want to have the representation of a network device, and a network device can then have, basically specialized version of it, whether it's a Cisco network device or a Juniper network device, and they have their own properties. And basically kind of the model allows us to model this into a very kind of object-oriented manner. So if you think about, in programming, you can define a base object that is like a vehicle, and if that vehicle, you can then specialize it and say that vehicle has 4 wheels and that's a car, or 2 wheels and that's a motorcycle or a bike. And basically what we do is the exact same concept here for our information model. We model a device and then we kind of add more specificity to that base entity and say this is a network device. And that network device can then become, is this a filtering capability? Does it have routing capability? Does it have other type of capabilities like that? The benefit that we have with that is the base model is provided by the platform. So it doesn't matter that you have other product. The platform knows what a device is, or even a basic network device is. But what happens is when NPM is installed, it will kind of populate extra entities outside and basically will make the model richer. And what happened is the integration between modules, like between NPM and NTA, they work out of the basic entities that are provided by the platform. And so what happened is we have linkage already between those entities, even though those products are not installed. And then you install NPM and NTA, and then we have real devices that are starting to show up. But the relationship with those entities actually automatically basically kind of taken into consideration because they were part of the original model. So what this allows us to do is we can only provide, not only provide UI level based integration where, okay, we have a widget that is from product A and then on the same page you saw a widget from product B, but behind the scenes we can actually have entities that know how to navigate from one to another even though they were contained into 2 different products. So if you think about it, so you have, an entity, if that's the basic model, and you've got, a network device here, and basically that derives from the concept of a device. And then here I'll have, I can have a filtering device. I can have a routing device. I can have other type of devices here. And then here, basically, those can either be specialized themselves as, from Cisco, and then, for various vendors. And basically, if you think about it, the device will have basically just an IP address. It's an entity on the network. Okay, a network device will inherit the IP address that is coming from the device, but it also most likely will have a management IP address, and also have maybe some SNMP credential associated to it so that we can actually talk to it. And then the filtering will have a set of ways to represent ACLs and filters capabilities that the device has. And the router will have routing rules. And you can imagine that you will have, virtual routing versus the other type of routing, things like that. And so if you think that this whole thing here is provided by the Orion part here, and then when you extend things like, from a router, I have a Cisco router, then that's provided by the NPM product. You see? And so as long as our reports that are provided by Orion are working of all the entities that are part of the basic model, it doesn't matter which product are installed on top of that, those reports will work and evolve and provide more information as you're adding more product on top of the platform. Okay, so that's kind of in a nutshell how this thing is organized, and it's one of the things that we really kind of don't talk at all. If you look on our website, good luck trying to find any explanation about how this works behind the scenes, but it's kind of important because often what we've seen is people go to the website and they see we have NPM and we have NTA, and they believe that those are products that are complete siloed with their own platform behind it, and there's no way for them to kind of communicate directly between each other. And so that's why I kind of spend a little bit more time on this than I have before, because we realize that there's benefit for people to understand that behind the scenes, things are being connected in a way that is not readily visible in the UI, but when we take alerts and we do alert suppressions and we do things like that, all of those features are taking advantage of those connections that are happening within the information model. Okay?
So when you sometimes acquire products, right?
Yeah, yes.
So how does that integration work from the moment you acquire them and start using them to the moment they're fully integrated? How long does that take?
So my preferred answer is it depends.
Of course.
Of course, that's the first thing. But overall, it really depends. On the networking side, honestly, we actually have had a lot of organic development over time. Really, the only product that we really added there that we have acquired is FSM. And that basically has not been integrated just yet completely within the platform and within the other products. And it's something that we are talking about, figuring out what are the feature set, where does that need to live? Is FSM still a standalone product, or does that become a feature set of another product? Those are discussions that we have right now. But so if we take those out, I mean, we've done overall 15 acquisitions since I've been at SolarWinds. So we've basically kind of had 15 products, but a lot of those have been on the sysman side, on the system management side, and one of them has been on the security side, which we'll talk about, as the later part of this presentation. And overall, over time, it took us long to actually integrate them in depth in the platform. But this is something that we've accelerated over the past year now, where, actually this month, you actually see a lot of those products like our virtualization manager product and our storage product to actually be integrated fully they are on their way to be fully integrated on top of the Orion platform and really kind of be tightly integrated, not just at the GUI level, but also in the model. Why this change, about probably 4 or 5 years ago, we believed that we could actually get away with basically using a federation model where you would leave those products as standalone. If they were running into a virtual appliance, let's keep them running into their virtual appliance, and then let's hook a data bus, basically that hook up the information model across the different products and let them communicate with each other. That worked, but if you go back to who SolarWinds is, and we need to have this kind of very kind of frictionless download experience, if now I have to download a virtual appliance and then a set of bits and install that onto a server, I end up with a lot of friction in the eval process if I want to try 2 products. And what we realized, and from customers' perspective, they really want this concept of the single pane of glass. That comes back. I think that term is overloaded, but the reality is that they want one place where they have metrics and they are capable of troubleshooting a lot of aspects of their problem into one single interface. And when you have a federated model, you end up having to replicate a lot of the data and a lot of the GUI work that is already happening into the native product, into yet another product, just for the benefit of not transporting all the data down. And honestly, I think that, if we had to look back at this, I think we should have gone earlier with a more full-blown integration. But you know what? In the meantime, we still have been able to solve people's problem, with those products. And, it's not helping, it's not prevented us to actually grow. And so now we are basically kind of, really kind of going much more in depth into the integration of those products. And so that's kind of where we are right now. Okay, so it was a long answer for you.
No, it was a perfect answer. Thank you. The second question, you mentioned some abstract scripts with the NCM product.
Yep.
Are you going into what that is in more details?
We can certainly kind of talk a little bit about it, but basically, it's been there for a while actually in there. We developed basically a domain-specific language, if you want, for allowing you to do basically just bulk operations over various devices that all have their kind of own idiosyncrasies about the way they kind of want things to be expressed. And so we basically create a language that actually has basic concepts for looping, testing, concepts of variable. And actually, that language, the entities that you deal with, are actually coming from the information model. Mm-hmm. So what you do is you just say, for each interfaces or for each in node.interfaces, and basically that represents a network node with all the interfaces that are hosted on that node, and you can basically at that point say, okay, attach them to this VLAN or something like that, basically in there. And basically, the language then translates that into, first of all, a CLI syntax that is doable or executable by the different platforms. But also, it translates then, it has a mapping layer that also kind of figure out what the exact syntax for that device is around, kind of setting up, for instance, attaching a port to a VLAN, for instance, things like that. So that's kind of where we are right now. We are not planning to talk more in depth about that. That technology is actually shared between this product, NCM, and cat tools. Cat tools has some basic capabilities of doing the same thing. So that's something that actually we haven't talked about this thing for a long time, but I figured that it was worth mentioning it because it's kind of a nice feature that we have in the product that a lot of people were running into problems because they wanted to do tests and looping into their scripts and couldn't do that, and so we added that back a few years ago now in the product.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're good with the products and the platform. So the next step is keeping this in mind. I'll just erase the bottom part here. Where we're at right now, if you think from a product strategy perspective, we are looking at, it's all about troubleshooting. I think monitoring and providing a lot of, kind of widgets and gadgets and things like that on the dashboard, it's interesting. But at the end of the day, the next step after that is how do you make it easy for network engineers and practitioners to actually reduce the time for resolution? And so the whole road that we are on right now, it's all about, network path troubleshooting and really kind of reducing the MTTR. And our goal, I'll tell you, it's not to become autonomous systems or, going to automatic root cause analysis and all of that. I think that's all great. We may get there one day, but I'm not sure that I'm going to be at SolarWinds when that happens. The fact is, I think if you think that on average, MTTR is around, probably 2 hours to resolve problems, that are popping up. If you can bring that down to 30 minutes or 15 minutes, that's, I think, where success is. You don't need to kind of go all the way necessarily and trying to be and automating everything to the nth degree. But what the goal needs to be to provide all the tools necessary to the practitioner who's actually doing the troubleshooting in an intelligent, smart workspace. And what that means is, Orion, when you have all of those products installed, in addition to our, Sysman products, has north of 750 widgets. If you have to start navigating those 750 widgets on your own, trying to kind of piece data, from one of the other and kind of flowing through the UI, it's going to take you a long time. Even though we have a lot of the information there that will help you actually solve the problem, it's piecing all of that information together that is the hard part. And so the thing that we are looking at, if you think about this, with FSM, as I said, we have, firewall rules, we have, some type of path, traffic information. With NPM, we have bandwidth, we have DPI information also, by the way, so we've added latency analysis of application using DPI information, so basically you can deploy DPI probes within your environment, and basically NPM will actually kind of automatically collect that data and basically use that to give you some level of information about the latency of and response time of various applications within your network. With NTA, we have a bunch of flow information, so we have, kind of bandwidth utilization. With UDT, we know who, what. With NCM, we have config information, and if you're feeling, on the app side of the world, when I was in charge of our internal group, and north of 80% of the failures that we had, whether those, website went down or applications started to crap out or things started to get kind of slow, 80% of those were due to changes of configuration of some sort. Whether a server was missing, some entry into the config file, or we pushed new bits to a server. And it's the same thing on a lot of time on the networking side. You end up, for some reason, a config that actually got out of whack on one of those servers or on one of those network devices, and you end up with suddenly, erratic behavior that was not there before. And so there's a tremendous amount of information about, the configs that are on those devices and be able to mine them and correlate the information that's in the config with the actual information that comes up from your telemetry. And then the last part is the kind of config of your subnets and things like that, and be able to kind of relate that to business constructs that basically, why is this subnet done this way? That information is being kind of maintained more as metadata inside IPAM. And so if you think about that, when I actually have, my user here, and he's reaching out to some network device, who goes to yet another network device, and so on, and try to kind of get to, finally some type of server somewhere, and something is broken down the line, what we really have right now is we have a lot of the kind of basic information that you need to actually troubleshoot that. But the thing that we have, and we'll show you, we have some great stuff within each of the products that we have, and great features that are actually, really helping, reducing the MTTR. But really for us, the next step after that is how can we take all of this and really apply that to the whole path between the user and what he's trying to access, and really pull in the information that is relevant for the problem that you are trying to solve at that point. Don't bombard me with 50 different widgets that will tell me a bunch of things that I don't care about when I'm trying to troubleshoot that problem. And so, I'll hand it to kind of, Rob right now so that he can actually, show you a little bit more in details what we have in terms of new features in NPM and regarding network troubleshooting.
Just one question before, slight tangent. Just a question coming in from Waylon on Twitter. At the moment, all your backend database stuff is Microsoft SQL Server. Mm-hmm. Is there demand from customers and/or any plans to support other databases for that backend?
No, so it's kind of and Rob here has been, I don't know if you're still in charge, but he's been in charge of the core platform as a PM, and it's one of the things that we saw on our TWAC community. There's a question that usually pops up, every month about, do you guys support anything else? What about the licensing scheme for SQL and all of that? And the fact is that, yes, we hear about it, but we don't hear about that in a meaningful manner for us to change the plans.
I mean, because the thing is, you can't solve every customer's problem everywhere, right? And you've got to figure. So it's trying to figure out. So you're seeing it, but it's not enough, I guess, at the moment for you to go.
We certainly have heard about those type of issues, but we haven't, it's not reached the criticality level where we would have to put, 2 or 3 engineers on that versus adding other features to some of the products that are more, end user visible. Because at the end of the day, okay, we change the database. It's end user visible when you procure the system, and you have to kind of get that done. But once it's running, it's running, and so if the customer was capable of getting that approved within its environment, in its procurement cycle, then once that's done, it's installed, and it's not a question that kind of raises its head again.
Yeah, there are some constraints with using Microsoft SQL, but there's also a lot of benefits as well. I mean, a lot of organizations that we deal with particularly are very comfortable with Microsoft SQL.
There's plenty of it out there. If you were, say, if you had MySQL skills in-house because you're using it for other stuff, then it'd be kind of nice to leverage that. I'm certainly not saying you want to spot Oracle or whatever, because
no, those things have, they certainly have popped up. We had some products that were, supporting MySQL. I'll tell you that, once MySQL was actually acquired by Oracle, it became a lot more complicated to actually, embed MySQL into your on-premise.
Postgres would probably be a better option.
Onto your on-premise product, because they changed the licensing of the JDBC connector and made it GPL. And that means that, with the nice things around GPL is that, if you are, a closed source project and you're trying to kind of link to GPL-based software, you end up with, being on the fringe of, where is it okay to actually, include it and where is it not okay. And so we rather stayed away from that. We actually migrated that product to actually MariaDB, which doesn't have the issues with MySQL. But it's kind of where we are right now.
I guess you made some changes with NTA, I think it was about a year ago, roughly?
Probably 2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, where you changed, quite significantly changed the whole way you store and structure the data and whatever for that is.
Yeah, that's right. So we moved to a columnar, a dedicated columnar data scheme, basically, where we have it's kind of a set of flat files, and each flat file basically represents a column of data. So in the tuple that you get from NetFlow, they would represent one of the data parts of the tuple. But what really kind of makes it interesting is the index that is being built on top of that, which basically it's a little library called Fastbit, which basically is an extremely kind of extremely capable little library that manages what is called bitmap index. And bitmap index are really, really powerful for doing the type of queries that we need when you are interested into multi-dimensional type of queries. Because what you end up doing is you end up ending or ORing bits together. And if you look at the where clause of a query, whether you use OLAP or you're doing multidimensional queries, there's a lot of and ORs around the different dimensions that you have. And basically, that ends up being very, very optimal in terms of the execution of that. And that library does a great job of actually compressing those bitmaps into really small sizes. So we saw a tremendous amount of scalability coming up out of that product, basically, as we put that technology in place.
So it's effectively database level TCAM.
Yes. Yes. So look, when it makes sense for us to use other data stores, then we'll do it. Like we did for NetFlow. We are talking about, every year we talk about, is storing time series data inside SQL Server the right way for us, or should we look at another data storage mechanism to store time series data? Because when you store data into a relational database, you're making a lot of trade-offs. It provides a lot of service for you, acidity and all of that stuff and transaction isolation. But the fact is, for a lot of things, you don't need those things, and you pay a price every time you put 5 bytes into, a record in a row or in a row in a table. There's a lot of overhead around that, and so we always have this discussion internally about do we need to use another type of database to store that type of data or not. So it's something that we look at, all the time.